So very rarely in life we come across someone who has such a profound and lasting effect on you that they fundamentally change who you are. For me, that is my guest today, Nick Himowicz. Nick, before we get too far, right, I just want to say thank you. Like, my life is genuinely better because of you. And I've said thank you a couple of times, but I wanted to just do it publicly. Thank you so much. You are an incredible person. You've been so supportive to me over the last many years, but I'm in a privileged position of knowing you really well. But there's a lot of people that are going to be listening that may know of you, but might not really know you. So what can you tell us? What can you tell them to make them kind of get a bit of an understanding about who Nick is? What's the story of Nick?
Wow. First of all, massive thank you. I feel, Spencer, you're my mentor. You've helped me grow, and it's been great sharing experiences along the way. It's super heartwarming to hear that, and it's been a pleasure, knowing you and being your friend, really. So thank you as well to you. Thank you for the warm introduction, and thank you to those of you that are listening. My promise is to share as much useful information as I can on this in this interview that hopefully you'll find helpful, that you can apply in your own life. And I'll share some of my own stories because I think they may be helpful for you as well. So I think the best way that I can answer this is by saying, rather than saying what I'm doing, I want to answer it by saying, like, where am I doing it first? Because I literally just moved to Moldova this year at the end of January, and people often say, first of all, the Maldives, I think there's some nice beaches there, right? And then say, hold on, it's not that country starting with an M. And then the other one is like, or they'll be like, Moldova, you know that's next to Ukraine, right? So I'm like, what? Where?
How did that happen?
So I think it's important just to talk a little bit about that, because my wife is from Moldova. We met in London. We just had a beautiful baby in February, and so she's 4 months old now, a baby Maria. And so that's amazing because it's a really fun time to be balancing being a dad and doing work as well at the same time, and it's fun. It's a whole fun experience. And what I'd say is, being in Moldova.
Wait, just a minute. I want to let people realize the scale of change in your life in the last 6 months, right? So
Yeah.
you relocated to a country that you've never. I don't know if you've ever been there. Yeah, you'd been there before, of course, but you like brand new country, of course, on the border of Ukraine with everything that's going on in the Ukraine. You got married, you had a child. You've changed your job to a certain extent, I think, not necessarily the core of what you do, but like definitely in there's a difference there as well. So some of the biggest things, that life-changing moments, you've basically packed into the last 6 months. And yet, right, with all of that going on, every time we ever speak, there's an enormous smile, there's enormous optimism, and like I'm super intrigued about where that comes from as well. So anyway, look, I butted into your story. The floor is yours.
No, it's amazing. So, I think that helps give people a context. And so I'm doing a lot more work from home. And to get to the point, I help organizations create new business models or create new value propositions, build their future business. That's where I come in. If they're interested in kind of just improving what they're doing right now, I'm probably not going to work with them. What I want to do is help them think about, look, what's the next thing? What's coming up in the future? And how can we build for that in a really more effective, successful way? So that's what I do. And I use two main methodologies. One is Strategizer's Toolkit, Strategizer's methodology. They've got 5 books. So I help people with what they'll be probably more familiar with is the business model canvas, value proposition canvas. These are some of the tools that we use along the journey to help people grow their future businesses. But then also I'm a big fan of Edward de Bono's 6 Thinking Hats. And that is that's a huge, it's a very simple methodology, but it's a hugely important part of how I help my clients. So it's an interesting time because I think you said as well, everything's changed at the moment. It's been really, really interesting, and it's been intense, but it's been fun. And I think just to answer the question about how I maintain an optimistic, positive outlook, is that I heard somewhere that this phrase, which was that your job is today, God's job is tomorrow. Give God his job back. I really like that. And if you're not a fan of God, you can always change it to the universe as well. So the universe is your job is today. The universe's job is tomorrow. Give the universe its job back, because actually, what you need to be doing is getting yourself into a fully present state. Yeah, where you're not stressed out, where you're relaxed, and that's where your best decisions will be coming from. Whereas what happens in society, whether it's intentionally or not, is that we're living in a very stressed out situation constantly, and that means that we can't make good decisions. So it's on us individually to kind of step out of that and try to find ways that we can be as relaxed and focused and in our best physical, mental, spiritual states. And then it's easy to make better decisions, and then your life improves because you're not stressed. And then also, you're not stressed in the moment. You're not stressed for that hour. You're not stressed for that day. You're not stressed for that week, that month, that year, and then your whole life. So it's actually quite profound by being relaxed in that moment, the impact it can have on your life. So I try to do that. And that mantra of your job is today, God's job is tomorrow, give God his job back, helps me do that and maintain my optimism, even when there have been very difficult times. Like, for example, managing my work situation, where before, like, this is the classic challenge where you put all your eggs in one basket, right? This is what I've done. And I've been very happy with that with Strategizer. But now is the time to take the eggs out of that basket and go back to having multiple clients that I work with at the same time. And that's already starting to come into fruition. And at the same time, it's not just the work side. It's also then looking after the baby. And the baby was a couple of months premature. And then it's all this intense stuff. And then you've got the war coming over. And you're like, every day, Russia's saying, we're going to Moldova's next. So it's all this intense stuff. But you've got to stay positive. You've got to stay optimistic, and then don't worry on the stuff that's further out. Just focus on the stuff today and do the best that you can in the moment. So that's I've covered quite a lot of ground there. I don't know if there's anything else you want to pick up on there.
Well, it's beautiful. I think that's so, and it's one of the things that we've I think grown together in that way as well, right? When we were first, we were exercising on Zoom before lockdown, right? And
before it was cool.
Before it was cool to do that, we were doing that at 6 o'clock in the morning, and we'd meditate together on Zoom, and we'd talk about, spiritual things, about mindset, about getting your shit in order to be the best person that you can, to show up in the best way and do the best things that you can for the people around you as well as for yourself. One of the things that I think about with regard to what you just talked about was this kind of stoic principle of your circle of control. Like, you can't control tomorrow. There's nothing you can do about what tomorrow brings. That is in the lap of the gods or in the universe. That's going to set that agenda for you. All you can do is respond to the things around you that are happening today in the present moment. And I think that's kind of the way that I interpret that. And if it's out of your circle of control, there's no point in being worried about it. Of course, it's hard, right? And sometimes you need to go through a practice to remind yourself of what is within your control and how best to show up. But I think it's a similar kind of ideas, and I think that's again something that I probably picked up along the way from you and shared in that journey together. But that's something which was really important for us, right? The exercise side of things. And we did, for anybody that doesn't know this, we did a year's worth of podcast shows on YouTube before we'd done really any video work at all. Maybe a couple of little bits here and there I think we'd each done. But I remember our first show, we did it, do you remember this? We recorded it in portrait mode instead of landscape, which is cool now. And that's the way that a lot of video is now. But back then it wasn't the thing to be done. So we've got this first episode, which is in audio, but never pushed onto YouTube because we recorded it in completely the wrong way. But over that year, we grew up in our confidence, in our ability to, on the technical side, on the equipment. Every episode got a little bit better. So I want to talk a little bit, if you can. I didn't realize I was going to do that transition, but we'll transition a little bit into content and YouTube, if that's okay, because it's become such a big part of your life. I'd imagine it's probably where you're most known. And actually, arguably, perhaps with the Strategizer work now, you're known to that community a huge amount. But I think it's probably the big channel that you've been focusing on is video for the last couple of years. Tell us about that. Why? What is it you're doing? What's the focus for the future as well? I'm really interested in.
Yes, so I'm blown away by the power of video still. I still consider myself a small creator. I've got nearly 3,000 subscribers on YouTube, but I don't think that my actual audience that's going to pay me money is finding me currently on YouTube. I think the audience that is paying me money immediately is finding me via LinkedIn. What's interesting is that you can think that you post a video and then you think that it's not having an impact. But yeah, if you make only one video, it probably won't make an impact. Although often the first video is the one that your friends and connections see and they go, hold on, something new's happening. And then they are more likely to interact with. But once you start doing it consistently, then they kind of, the comments start to drop off actually, because the problem is you're probably making rubbish content consistently. And also your content has to compete with world-class content that's out there as well. And so you can go through this kind of wilderness of, like, you started off where you got some kind of positive comments and responses and you were like, this is really good, and this is great. And then you kind of go through this wilderness of like, hold on, what happened to those? Like, we're not getting as many of those comments anymore. Like the newbie comments, the kind of newbie support is totally withered away from your connections. And now you're trying to do the hard yards of, like, you're making content, but you don't really have time to make it, so you don't know if the quality's there. But you're trying to do it regularly and make things happen. But it's tough. What you need to do is you need to try to keep improving. So first of all, go with that consistency, make as much content as you can over the long term. But then you also need to be trying to make better content at the same time. Because if you just make the same video, even though you might change the topic or change it slightly over 3 years, your reach is not going to improve. What you need to be doing is being consistent while then slowly trying to improve over time. And then that's how you're going to create an audience. And the examples for me is that I had a great conversation last week with Freddie Dazer, who is he's in charge of the innovation accelerator at Volvo, and he has actually done such a good job. He's moved from innovation to now he's managing more the exploit part of the business, the kind of business as usual side, because he's done such a great job, which I thought was really interesting, because Alex Osterwalder talks about this idea of innovation being career suicide, because that's like you've got all the corporate antibodies that are trying to shut you down. And so it's so easy to just kind of get kicked out of the business or forced out, rather than actually it being integrated and then supported and then grown. And then another example, we spoke to Ube Jolie, former CEO of Best Buy, and he was saying that he had an innovation engine within his organization. I think he called it the Strategic Growth Office. I can't remember the name of the person that was running it, but she actually went on to become the CEO and the successor of Ube Jolie. So it is possible to be an innovator in an organization and go on to integrate yourself into the business. But the point that I make with that is that when I was speaking to Freddie, he said to me, I've been watching your videos for 3 years and they've been a massive inspiration to me. So thank you so much for doing that. And it's great because then there's potential, like maybe I can do a talk with Volvo, or maybe, do some work with them, or you never know where that connection could lead. And it's because of that content that I've been pumping out that's been able to happen. And I haven't even been that consistent, especially over the last year. But I was 2-3 years ago, and from that, a lot of opportunities have come out. So I think if people are trying to make content, they should make content about the types of topics that they want to be hired for, and then have clear call to actions at the end of it to either watch another video or to go to their website or something like that. But it's key that you don't just make content for the sake of making the content. That's okay in the very beginning, but actually what you should do is have a strategy and say, what is the call to action that I want people to do at the end of my videos, and work your way back from there. So, you might even go one more step. What am I trying to sell? What's the kind of, if that's a bigger thing, work out what's a smaller thing that you could sell. And then what's the call to action that you should have at the end of your videos? Then what's the topics in the videos that you should be talking about? And then also what's the types of videos that you should be making? That is something that I think I'm understanding better now, that if you have that kind of step-by-step process, each element of that together, you're going to be able to be more effective in the videos that create, and therefore get better work at the end of it. Because otherwise it's crazy, right? But you're like, I'm just making random videos, but I'm not getting work from them. Why not?
And
The
I think
answer,
I've been in that trap for a while, right? Definitely, yeah.
the,
And
and the
like, and the
answer
videos,
is,
go on, yeah.
the answer is you didn't go, hold on, actually, what am I trying to sell? Maybe I should make videos that are logical to that thing that I'm trying to sell, so that when people go through it, it's like, yeah, of course he's trying to sell an innovation workshop, because he's been talking about, well, first of all, he's helped us understand what business innovation is and why it's important for our organization and how we can make it happen. In fact, he's given us the whole roadmap. But actually, do you know what? This guy seems to know what he's talking about. Maybe we should just pay him to help us with this as well. And that, I think, is the key thing that a lot of people are missing, as you say. It's also something that you struggled with, like me.
Yeah, man, there's so much to unpick in that. So yeah, I've definitely struggled with that. Often I'll make a video because I have a flash of inspiration about a title or a topic, and that becomes the thing that I want to create content around. And sometimes that's, and you've definitely advised me heavily on this as well, is that sometimes that's just overcomplicated. It's too big a thing. I'm not thinking about the outcome that I'm looking to drive towards, or the behaviors that I want people to kind of have after watching this video, like with the call to action. Also, the thumbnail, right? Thumbnail should be the first thing that you create rather than the video. So I think working backwards from that, knowing what you're trying to sell, what's your call to action, what's the thumbnail that's going to attract people towards watching this video, what are the topics within it, and then maybe figuring out the title before even creating the content as well. So important. But I think one of the other things here is just a real quick one is you've highlighted something which is I come across all the time, or I think about all the time, which is that sometimes we give advice to other businesses based on our expertise and our knowledge and what it is that we do, but sometimes we don't enact that advice ourselves, right? And I think this is why I valued our friendship so much, because sometimes you've just mirrored the thing that I do to people back to me, and I'm gone, shit, yeah, of course, that's what I should be doing. Absolutely. And the kind of flow that you just talked about there really is how I've thought about product thinking. Think about the thing that you want to get people to do, think about what the benefits are, think about the jobs to be done, work backwards towards what is it that you're going to create that's going to enable people to go on that journey and making progress and kind of solving those jobs to be done and kind of gaining the things that they're looking for, the benefits they're looking to achieve. So you've done that really well. And of course, you went hard on video for a long time, right? One of the interesting things, and you talked about this a little bit with regards to LinkedIn and YouTube, one of the things I'm finding now, because I'm going much bigger on LinkedIn as well, I'm trying to post that daily, but I find that the shelf life of content on LinkedIn is very, very short. Whereas people are going back to YouTube all the time. It's much more searchable, it's more evergreen. So I've got this two-pronged strategy, which is where I want to have places where long green evergreen content is. Maybe it's longer form, maybe it's a bit more in depth, but then I'm using LinkedIn almost like Twitter. It's daily, it's disposable, it's quick. I can test ideas much more easily. Some of those ideas might then become videos because they gather some interest and whatever else as well. So how are you approaching those two worlds of LinkedIn and YouTube? Is it, it's a similar kind of thing, or what's your view of it?
Very similar. Something that I did for my latest video, so I'm not going to try to pretend that this is how I do it, but I've just done it for my latest video and it worked really well, was that I broke it down into separate parts and I tested each individual part on LinkedIn first, got feedback, and then even posted the update. Because actually, you don't know what piece of content LinkedIn's going to pick up on. And as long as you don't, I think, post too frequently on the same day and you spread it out a little bit, you can be surprised which content LinkedIn will then kind of like pick up on and then post or share, give more reach to. So what I did was I created quite a scrappy version of a video, but posted it on LinkedIn, and LinkedIn loved it. Like, it actually got really good feedback. But when I posted it on LinkedIn, I noticed it was quite dark. And so then I worked on it to improve the brightness, because even though it looked great on my computer here when I was editing it, it didn't look great when I was looking at it on my phone at someone else's house. So that means that if YouTube is that place that you want it to be, the library, you want to make sure that that version that you put in the library is the best version that it can be. That's what I'm thinking about now, especially considering that I don't think the audience that I'm looking for is sitting on YouTube waiting for my videos. I'm probably looking for business owners, for small to medium enterprises that want to like grow their business, but I don't know, like they're there on YouTube, but I think it's quite hard to reach them. And so what I'm trying to do is actually bring people over from LinkedIn, or even post the same good high quality videos that I'm going to post on YouTube as the library, but still take that content and post it natively on LinkedIn as well, but do it quite a few different ways, so that it doesn't even matter if people have seen it twice, you just post it there anyway. So I'll take a section, post it, get feedback, or even like give myself feedback from having watched it on a different device, and then iterate on it, and then post it again, and then maybe even post it again before then doing it for another section, posting that separately and putting it together. And so something that I'm quite interested in and excited by now is making videos that are more like variety shows, or variety shows. Yeah. So I think I'm going to try and focus and do that more, because this process lends itself well to variety show formats where you've got different sections that come together. So that's what I'm trying to do, but all to the end that we're trying to get to, which is what's the thing I'm trying to sell. And each section needs to build on one another to help the viewer go along the journey to know, like, oh, that's a clear call to action. This all makes sense. Like, it was all different bits, but it makes sense. And the idea is that you've got it's a variety show, because that's how you keep it interesting. Because I think another big problem that people will have is they're like, oh, I need to share information. Actually, the problem is not information. People can get information from anywhere. What's interesting is, why are you sharing that information that's interesting? Like, how are you doing it in an interesting way? Because it's you, but also, how can you put a spin on it and make it unique, like your unique spin, so that it's more interesting for people? Because actually, if I want the information, I just go on Google and get it anywhere, or I can go on ChatGPT. Whereas what I want to do now is find ways that I can make my content unique to me. And certainly the way that I've done the kind of, I don't know what you call it, but speaking to myself videos, that's, I think, quite an engaging way to make videos that most people talking about business growth aren't doing. And also then like creating like a variety show, game show that's actually talking about innovation and products, but in an interesting way, and then leading on to kind of like, hold on, that was fun, but this is what it's really about. Like, that's something that I haven't seen anybody else do. I'm seeing what's that guy, Lars from Granny and Smith.
Yeah.
Him doing him. I think he's doing something cool. He's already got a huge audience on LinkedIn, so that's helping. But he's posting like innovation memes and innovation meme videos that he's putting together himself, and they're doing extraordinarily well. And that's because like no one else is really doing it like him with his flair. And it's just very quick. It's very snackable. Another thing that I've noticed is that creating visuals that are quite simple, but you can immediately get them, that's getting traction as well. But it takes time to be able to get to that point. And so I think a key point as well is to think to yourself, how can I honor my audience and honor my audience's time by making this as easy to understand and as engaging as possible? And that's something I'm really trying to focus on now. So rather than make as much quantity, I'm trying to make better quality content if it's going to help people ultimately buy the thing that I'm trying to sell. Because I think the volume thing isn't going to work for me, because it's hard to get to that point of the engaging and interesting. So that's the strategy that I'm taking at the moment.
I think that's answered so many of my questions about content, because we can so easily get hung up on the numbers, on the vanity metrics, on looking for the likes and the views and whatever else. But the reality is, and I've seen this as well, is that they don't tend to drive the sales. What they do, I think, is add some kudos. So if someone finds you on LinkedIn, they go to YouTube and they see that you've got nearly 3,000 followers and you've got a bunch of videos and they're getting great responses, then it just adds to that sense of who you are and what you're capable of. So I think it's maybe not it's not maybe the discoverable tool or the way that people discover you, but it's definitely the way that they start to trust you and know who you are and get that appreciation and the credibility of who you are. So I think that's how I kind of have tended to approach it as well. And I've got a much smaller following on YouTube, although I am trying to grow it. And grow it through partnerships like this and these, the reason I'm doing a lot of these interviews is to try to hang on the back of people's coattails that are already doing really good stuff. And this is, Nick, this is why I'm using you for this video. Not using you, you know how it is. But yeah, but it's definitely, I mean, there's some really great examples. By the way, your game show thing, because you've shared a lot of videos with me before releasing them. When that came out and I hadn't seen it, it blew my mind. Like I was like, Jesus, Nick, I always felt like I was catching up, and then you've just done this stratospheric leap ahead for a completely different format, completely different style, beautiful execution as well. Like it just looked like a classic 70s 80s TV show. You had the attire, you had the everything going on, great graphics, amazing work, and some of that stuff just blows me away. But one of the things I think was really important that we come back to is, I think I'm like you. I think content is so important for so many people, and I try and help people to make content here and there as well that have been wanting to but not being able to kind of get going. And it's really difficult when there's a saturated market, it's such a saturated market as it is around the content world, because we're competing for so much attention, or competing for attention with so many different things. And people can become constrained by that, restricted by that. They can get these kind of perfectionist tendencies because they go, how on earth am I possibly going to compete? How can I get people to watch my stuff when they've got this stuff available? And it can be quite daunting for people, I think, as well. But I think what you talked about right at the beginning, which was consistency is key. Make 100 shit videos first, almost, but then start to go in, right, once you've got into this habit, or 10 shit videos, whatever it is, once you've got into this habit of actually putting yourself out there, getting rid of those perfectionist tendencies, then to start to think about how you can improve each of those videos. So that two-step process, I guess, from Ali Abdaal, we've talked about a bunch as well, right? Make videos, then start to make better videos, right? That's really all you need to be doing in the content world, consistently making videos, making each one of those better every single time. And especially with that framework that you talked about earlier, with the, what is it that you're trying to sell, what's the call to action, and then work backwards. I think that's such valuable insight.
I think there's a massive piece missing for people that want to make content, and that is the 4-Hour Work Week by Tim Ferriss. Because it's very hard to make videos consistently and to make them better over time, because as you start making videos, if you get any traction, you get people knocking on your door saying, oh, hold on, actually, could you do this work for me? Or actually, I do want to buy that service product that you said. Or, you get busy, or then a family commitment happens or something. And there's always a reason that's going to stop you from actually making the content consistently if it actually starts working. And even if it's not working, also there's every reason out there to not make that content. So something that Tim Ferriss talks about is this idea that what you need to do is you need to find ways to reduce the amount of time that you're spending on your day job. Yeah. And you need to also find ways to increase the amount of money that you earn from your day job, because that literally just created a space there. And in this space here that we just created, that is the space and time that you create videos in. It's tough to do it if you're not reducing the amount of time you're doing somewhere else on your day job, and also finding ways to increase money, because that means that you're not going to have that opportunity to create videos like in the way that you want to, because as you become more ambitious, it takes more time to actually make them. And there's this it's something Alex Hormozy talks about, an ignorance tax. With video
Okay.
production, there's this huge ignorance tax that it's not just around the technology, that's one side of it, but there's also around the kind of like types of videos that you can make. So now I know that I could do game show videos and put that into my content, and that's easy. I also know that I can do those kind of talking to myself videos, and it's like I'm creating a repertoire. Like it's almost like a painter has different brushes and different colors and different techniques. I'm doing that, but with video, and the brushes are the camera equipment that I have, and the techniques like turning the paintbrush around and using the other side of it to like scratch into the paint. You know, that's maybe another like technique, and then knowing that I can do kind of like really cool lifelike paintings versus being able to do Picasso style kind of like more out there abstract images. Like that abstract thing might be the video, the game shows, whereas the kind of lifelike videos might be just being able to talk, do really good talking head videos, explainer videos, me talking face to camera. But then I can jump between them. And what's great is then when you work out what's your repertoire, putting it all together in one video sometimes can be great. So as we said, there's an ignorance tax that you need to spend a lot of time working out what that is. And one way is to do that is through consistency, and the other way is through trying to improve and try different things. So but you're not going to get the time to be able to do that unless you make time with your schedule. And often, if you're working 5 days a week, you need to be thinking about how can I move to 4 days a week so that you can spend at least a day on making videos, or how can I move to 3 days a week? The other thing is you need to look at how much money you're earning and say, like, it's probably not enough. I'd be surprised anyone's listening going, actually, I'm good. I'm earning enough money. We're good. We're great. It's fine. No. So you need to find a way to increase the amount of money that you earn, because all the companies at the moment, they're struggling. They're trying to say, like, how can we get these people earning less money? Because we just don't have enough money ourselves as a company, right? And what you need to be doing as an individual is saying, like, no, hold on, how can I grow my earnings? Because I believe the best business model is this content creation business model where you've got a massive audience, and then what you work out is what their job to be done is, and then you create products and services that will suit them. And it's endless because you can use all these tools that you get from testing business ideas, you know, all the strategizer methodology, but it's harder when you don't have that audience in the beginning, because then you've got to pay for ads or stuff to reach out to them, right? If you've got that audience, they're just there waiting for you. If you've got them on an email list or you've got them in videos, you can try something out, see if it works. And if it doesn't, you can try something else. So that's a really interesting place to be. It's 11:11, by the way, in Moldova. So that's a good sign. I think that's
It's a good
the
sign.
universe looking on us well. Make a wish.
Make a wish.
So. And it just reminds me of something else that I'm pretty sure my mum said this, but other people have said this as well, that I believe in miracles, but I also believe you have to make miracles happen. Yeah, you have to work to make them happen. And so this is something that I think you need to try to find ways to do that. Reading the 4 Hour Work Week has got a lot of good tips. It's still something that I'm trying to work on myself, but it's tough because if you're working like a full-time gig, you're maxed out, you're tired by the end of the day. And so actually doing a year of trying to make videos consistently could actually destroy your physical and mental health. So that's why you've got to try to reduce the amount of time that you're working so that you can create a new space for making that isn't actually cutting into your sleep and your exercise time, all this stuff, or your relationships time, right? So yeah, and one thing that I think is important here is like, how can you build your skills that make, and that there's, how can you build your skills in a way that they're super valuable? And a lot of that might be right now getting into AI, understanding AI really well might be a skill that's like super in demand right now. So if you could build that, that could create an opportunity for you to earn more money by doing like consulting, you know, on the side. Or what are other skills that you can create that are high in demand? Because if you're working in a business that's commoditized, you're probably not going to have a way that you can kind of jump out your existing business to then earn money on the side, because no one's paying big money for that skill that you've got. So you've got to be also simultaneously building skills that are valuable and will be valuable over the next 5 to 10 years. Because if they're not, you you don't have a chance. And I feel sorry for people that are working in industries that are commoditized now and don't have a way out to be able to learn those, well, haven't thought about learning those new skills, or don't know a way to, or don't know that it's even possible. So what we need to be doing is educating ourselves, learning those new skills so that we're actually more valuable to people, and then we can use those skills to make more money and create more time and space to be able to create this content that enables us to then create this big audience, which enables us to then go boom, and then things get really exciting. I'm still on that journey, but I think that's the best approach for people now for the foreseeable future.
That's amazing. I totally agree. I'm very much on that journey as well, but I think it's a never-ending journey, right? Even to the point of, you know, working less but being paid more. That's a never end. Feels like it's a never-ending journey, and a lot of people are wanting to do that for a bunch of different reasons, right? To be able to occupy their time in a different way. Maybe that is to be able to create content, but maybe that is, you know, James Clear's 4 burner principle. Maybe that's turning the family burner up higher, or the, you know, the relationships or the social burner or whatever it is higher, so that you're giving that more fuel and more focus. But ultimately, I think you're right. Like, we've gone through this period of one job. That's what you do throughout the day. You come home and you do your family time, and the work-life balance thing was like, there were separate things that you did, right? Work and then life. But I think now we're at this point where the balance is kind of disappearing, because it's all integrated and seamless, because you don't just go to work and do your thing. You are like, I'm constantly working and I'm constantly not working. This is all play and it's all work, right? And that's a real joy and a privilege, and I understand my privilege in that position. But it's taken 10 years to be able to get to that point of constantly seeing what opportunities I can take. And I think the same for you as well. One of the things that I wanted to talk about here, you talked about this idea of different formats, different styles of video, and I think of, again, when I listen to that, I hear the relationship to product and this idea of experimentation, of trying different things in different ways, different styles, different formats, different outputs, if you like, and seeing what works. And I've been writing down these like little Venn diagrams of content. You know, you want to be figuring out what you want to say. I guess ultimately what you want to sell, and therefore what you want to say. You want to be thinking about what people want to hear. What are the issues that they might be struggling with, and make sure that those two connect. But you also want to talk about your expertise and think about how you want to deliver that in a style that resonates as well. I think there's some kind of diagram that probably fits all of those things together. The thing that you want to talk about, the thing that you think people want to hear, how you can demonstrate and showcase your expertise, but also figure out the format that gets that across in the best way possible as well. And that's a journey that I'm constantly on at the moment. Even with things like this, these interviews, how can you take this longer form content and turn it into multiple bits of content? How can I completely rework all the content to create a different narrative as well? And that's something that I'm starting to think about quite a bit as well. Now, there was something else that you said, and it just popped back into my head, and now it's popped back out of my head. And what on earth was it?
I've got something I'd like to jump in with, though. Maybe.
Jump in. Thank you. Save me.
So Mark Rebele said something I thought that was very profound. So he's a crazy musician that does live sampling, and every song that he does is improvised. And it was really interesting watching him during lockdown, because he would have callers call him while he was doing the live stream, and he tried to interact with them. And it was more often than not extremely boring, and like there was just not in a horrible way, but no value and no add that the callers were bringing. They were just going like, "Oh my God," like, "Oh wow, oh wow," and then he'd be like, "What are you doing?" "Oh no, just chilling." "Okay, got any plans today?" "No, not really." And so it was really boring, because he's trying to take something that they've said to use that to influence what he's going to do next in that improvised music that he's making. So it's really important that they say something interesting or out there, because then he's like, that's interesting. I'm going to take that and I'm going to create something new. But if they're saying, "No, just chilling," just gonna
Yeah.
maybe go get some food. And there was nothing there, and it made it really hard for him. And there's something else that I heard him say, where he said that most musicians, when they're up on stage, do the same thing. Good evening, London. How you doing tonight? Yeah, they always say the exact
You could
same
do that.
thing,
You could
right?
definitely rock that. I'd see you as a front man.
Thank you. Well, that's interesting because I'm a
Exactly
drummer, so
that.
I've always been.
Thank you.
I've always been back of house. So it's interesting that they always say the same things. And what Mark Rebele was saying was that, hold on, when you're in front of an audience, you don't have to say, good evening, London, great to see you tonight. Hell yeah. Hey, baby. I don't know if it's Metallica or something like that. Yeah. And although I'm a big fan of Metallica, I haven't listened to them for ages though. Mark Rebele said, you don't have to say that. You literally have every possibility open to you in the universe. You could say anything. And what I think is fascinating is watching Mark when he's in front. I think he was at Lollapalooza or something recently. And he just started off by he starts off by being super angry and emotional. And you're like, what the hell? Who is this guy talking to? But he's literally pulling on that. He's just letting the universe give him an idea and he's just going with it. And he's also dropping you straight into the context. And it's almost like he's dropping you into that context of he's definitely, it's definitely between a husband and a wife or something like that context. And there's an argument and he's being both of them and he's instantly dropping it in. And that's how he's starting his set. And he's literally turned it into anything he wanted it to be. And so when we're creating this content, we need our own content to try and sell something that we're trying to sell at the end of the day. We need to work backwards and go actually, I don't need to just be sat there on a chair, pressing record, and then be just talking as if I'm me and that's it. We could make anything. Exactly. We can make, no, but it's true. We can make anything. Anything is possible. And so maybe it's useful to have this idea of this explore-exploit portfolio where you make a lot of videos where you sit down, you turn the camera on, and then you kind of do what's predictable. That's okay, because then you can improve at that and get better in that, and that is a foundation. But also we should be doing this explore thing where we say, I can do anything. And in that context, why don't I go crazy and just, well, I think one way that you can do this is to listen to your own voice. And one way that you can do that is calm your mind down, get into this stress-free zone, relax, make sure that you slept well, make sure you're eating well. And then I think it's Spielberg that said this, I can't remember who it was, that said you've got to listen to that whisper, the whisper at the back of your voice, at the back of your head. And it never shouts, it always whispers. And if you don't listen to it, it gets quieter and quieter. But you need to find ways to listen to that whisper and make it go louder. And that you need to listen to that and then work on it. And I think there was someone else said something as well. I'm destroying examples and stories here and references and crediting it poorly. But I'm sure someone said that Prince used to call up his manager at 3 or 4 in the morning and say, get me a studio right now. I've got an idea and I need to record it. And if I don't record it right now, the universe is going to take it away from me and give it to Michael Jackson. Right? So you need to listen to these ideas. You need to at least write them down and put them together and just go for it. And if you've got a vision you can feel it. Sometimes a vision isn't whole when it gets sent to you by the universe, but you have a feeling that's whole and that you need to go for it. Because I might tell my wife, I've got this idea for a thing, and she'll be like, not sure, really? Not sure. Yeah. And it's great to share your ideas with people around you, because then you can refine them and it's good to get that feedback. But also sometimes I had in my gut, for example, the game show, a video that I made recently, I told my wife, she was like, not sure. I'm not sure. But it's because she couldn't see that vision that I had. She couldn't feel that gut feeling that I had, right? I didn't know what the whole thing was going to be at the end, but I just went, I need to make this. I kind of have a rough idea. And my mum always used to say, caminante, no hay camino, se hace camino al andar. Okay, and it's a Spanish song. And it means traveler. There is no path. you make the path as you go. Yeah, traveler, there is no path. You make the path as you go. And it's almost like, in my head, it's like almost like from a cartoon. Maybe you have a train, a train and tracks, and you've got like Mickey Mouse or someone, or like, you know, I can't remember who, like having the tracks. They've got a pile of tracks, and they're laying the track in front of the train as it's going along, quickly, quickly, quickly.
Yeah, yeah,
But
yeah,
you
yeah,
can
yeah, yeah.
decide where it's going, you know? And that's what you're doing when you have these ideas, this creative idea. You've got a rough idea, you know roughly where the direction is you want to go, but you're not quite sure how it's going to be, and you don't actually know what it's fully going to look like when you get there. But you just keep going, and if you do keep doing it, you get to a moment where you go, wow, look at that, that's beautiful. And that's just because you kept going to try and get there. So that's something that I'm trying to do more. But how can you do that if you don't have time and space? You can't be creative and do this stuff if you haven't got space, time, energy, and equipment to be able to do it. Luckily, the equipment can level it up as you go along, and you can start on your phone. You don't need the better equipment, but slowly having a studio and stuff like that helps for that when you're trying to create bigger ideas. And then hopefully the more successful that you are, the bigger the resources that you have to be able to bring bigger ideas and concepts to life. And it reminded me of this, which I haven't talked about much, which is this idea that I think this business model of you creating a big audience and then you can create products and services for them and you're able to test different things, it's great, but it's also a pyramid scheme, because you've got a few people at the top that are making a lot of money and doing really, really great, and everyone's going like, oh, all they did was set up a YouTube channel and they made a few videos and look at where they are now, right? There is a lot of, I'd be surprised that if they did it without that much hard work. They all are working really hard, so they deserve what they have. But you don't necessarily hear all the millions of stories of other people that have tried, that haven't made it, that are maybe trying really hard themselves. There's this kind of like survivor bias, that you only see the success bias, where you see the ones that have been successful but not the ones that haven't. And so yeah, it's a bit of a pyramid scheme, but that doesn't mean that you can't make it work for yourself. Because I've worked for network marketing, multi-level network marketing, a company doing that type of business model before. And the way that it makes money is that you try and get people to work. Like, you're not only trying to sell the product that company owns, you're also trying to get people to work for you, and then you get a cut of all sales that they make. So you're working as hard to sell the product yourself as you are trying to build your own team. Now, I never actually built my own team, so I didn't, but I saw how it worked with how it works. And that's actually what a lot of this business model is about, because I think one of the best things you can create to make money is sell courses. But often when you sell the courses, you're not necessarily doing the thing anymore. So you're trying to get people to kind of follow you and do your thing. And that's where this kind of idea of this pyramid scheme comes in, because you're making money selling a thing maybe, but you're also trying to sell the dream and get people involved in that. But there's which is like a negative element of it, but maybe it's just the way that I'm explaining it. But I think that still, what you need to do as an individual is you need to find ways for this system to work for you.
Yeah.
And the ways that you can do that is by making sure that you've got a better idea of what the thing is you're trying to sell, like having a service probably in the beginning, and then making videos that do that in a simple, as quick way as possible, that don't like tire you out too much, and sharing that with your audience. I think you're going to get benefits from that almost straight away if you do that, and if you keep doing it consistently. So it's not all bad. I still think it can be like the best thing you can do, but you need to do it in a way that's healthy for you over the long
It's
term.
healthy. It's a journey, not thinking about the end goal so much, thinking about falling in love with the journey. I think is a really important part of this as well. There's a couple of, you said so much, right? You said at the beginning, for anyone listening, Nick said, I'm going to answer each question in a really long way. And like, I love it, because the problem is I'm having is that these answers are like so crammed full of stuff. I'm trying to jot things down to kind of build on them, but thank you. It's amazing, getting so much value. There's a couple of things I want to pick up on though. The first one is this idea of making time. It's making time, not finding time. Like, if you ask people, do you have time for something? No one has time. No one has time that's busy to be able to do anything, but everyone does have the opportunity and the capability within them to be able to make time. And I think that's a really important differentiation, because there's always something that can be dropped. You could watch less Netflix, or you could, you know, not cook for 3 hours, or, you know, there's things that you can change about your life. You can shorten the amount of time that you're working. You can be more efficient with certain things. You can take a walk that's going to free your mind and be able to be far more productive, rather than just slogging on something over and over again and not getting anywhere with it. So there's a load of ways that you can make time by taking a bit of time out. Actually can often make you much more efficient as well. That links me to a guy called John Zaratsky, who wrote a book with Jake Knapp called Make Time, and also wrote the design sprint book. And there's two reasons that I want to talk about that. One is the Make Time, but also I'm doing an interview with him in a couple of weeks, and he challenged me for something that you just spoke about pushing the idea of the style of the format of the video in a different way. When I was talking to him first, he was like, "Look, I get it. I get what you're trying to do. Is there a way that we can make it so it's not just about talking heads and a normal everyday interview that everyone else does? What can we do that's going to be a little bit different?" And he had seen some of my previous videos around the business model canvas that I did about Strategizer, the one I did about AJ and Smart, and the one I did about Google and ChatGPT kind of coming head to head. So he's now challenged me with, how can we incorporate some of that style of video, but into an interview situation as well? So I'm really looking forward to that. I've been doing a lot of work behind the scenes about how that can look, but it's really pushing my conception of what an interview style podcast video show is about, but trying to push it in a different direction. I don't know whether it's going to come off. I don't know what that's going to look like exactly, but it's got to be an experiment that I do in order to improve. And I think that's the other thing that I wanted to kind of, two other things. There are two other things. I remembered the other bit that I forgot a minute ago. First thing is that experimentation. So you talked a lot about practice. Again, I'm relating this to product world, product thinking world. Experimentation is key. Experimenting on the different styles that you want to have, the different formats, about putting things on LinkedIn versus Twitter versus Instagram. We've experimented with things like carousels, with Instagram Reels, with YouTube Shorts. We're doing all of these experiments. And what I find is that I need to probably run those experiments for longer than I kind of give them credit for. So you got to be consistent with these things in order to get enough data and be able to interpret some kind of results and outcomes from it. But I think experimentation is absolutely the key. And that's basically what you did with your talk show version, your game show, version. You are someone's opinion, but you've got to bear in mind that opinion might be completely different to yours. When we're trying to sell ideas to people, sometimes we'll try to paint a picture of what's in your head, but it never quite gets to the point where they fully understand what's going on. And so I think all too often we tell people an idea, coming back to the kind of innovation world, we'll talk about an idea and they'll go, no, we've done that before, or no, we can't do that. That's not how it works here. But it's often because you're not sharing the full context of what you've got in your head. And actually the route towards getting people to understand is often about making it tangible, prototyping it in some way, bringing it to life, so that when people see it in as rudimentary and scrappy a way as you like, as possible, really, so that you can make it really quickly, but bring it to life and make it tangible so that people can really understand the context and the vision that you have, rather than trying to get it across in a couple of words. I think, and you're doing that through content, but you're doing that in so many other ways as well. And I'm sure help your organizations that you work with, the clients that you have, around doing that as well. The final thing that I wanted to talk about, which I'd forgotten earlier, is one of the areas that I've always struggled with content, is that I try to make something a brand new and creative every single time, rather than finding a topic that really works and basically, I guess, exploit. I'm always in explore mode, right? Rather than finding a topic that works and exploiting that. And I think I see you starting to move towards more the exploit mode, right? Where you may be taking one piece of content, experimenting on that with your audience, seeing what works, then redoing it, then adding another section, and then putting that onto YouTube and then turning that into a behind the scenes video. And then, so we've got all of this content, and it's not about like what I do with this pillar content that you can then chop up in different ways. It's about resurfacing that same message, but under a different format, style, and maybe a different context as well. I've never been good at that. I've always moved on to the next idea. I feel like I've got to do an idea about this, got to know. And then when I do find a model that works, I don't know whether I get bored with it or what, but like the business model canvas stuff that I was doing, way more views on that than a lot of other work that I've done, but I haven't continued with it, partly because it's really hard and it takes a lot of time. But I love that idea of, and something, this is a lesson for me as much as anything, it's what are those kind of big bits of content and focus areas that you can rinse and really exploit. And we see some of the best influencers or best kind of people on the social platforms doing exactly that, right? They've got one basically core concept and they're rinsing it in a load of different ways to make a lot of great content. It looks like they're super productive, but often it's just regurgitating with a different voice. So I think that's a great lesson.
Something that's really important is that you have to be passionate and truly believe with your whole soul about the thing that you're trying to talk about, the topic that you're trying to talk about. If you do that, I think it's easy then to do it again and again and again for quite a long time. Something that's really important for me is finding interesting things and being able to share those with other people and be like, everybody, look at this. This is really cool. Come and check it out, right? And then I like it when people go, yeah, this is great. Thanks, Nick. You're great for telling me about this. Thank you. That's the vibe of what I want to create. And so I found some of those things, like the business model canvas is one of those things where I found out about it. I was like, this is good. And the great thing about the business model canvas is there's so many people that misunderstand it. And so I believe that they need to be reintroduced in a way that actually does show them the magic, because they've either don't think it's magical or they have not seen all of the magic that it can provide them. And so it's easy to then go back and then introduce it in ways that they haven't thought about before, because I know they need it. The other thing that's really important for content is that you start writing about or making content at the level that you are at as the creator. But actually what you need to be doing is starting or speaking to people at the level that they're at to be able to then get to that call to action that you want. And often it's actually quite a lot like earlier stage than what you were trying to make for in the beginning. So try to think to the very beginning, what's the first piece of information that I really need to know, like to get into this topic first? Because otherwise we can kind of jump that part, and that's really important for being the gateway to get people into your content in the first place. And that's something that I think that I've made a mistake with in the past, but I'm trying to focus on it now. And one way you can do that is by showing the same type of topic, like the game show concept. It was just talking about products. It was just saying, look, here's products, the company, what was the original product that they made? Oh, look, there was a transformation. Oh, well, that's important because look, if the biggest companies have changed and made new products and transformed over the time, well, you as a business owner probably need to do this too. But using the game show as a front to be able to get their attention, educate them first, then they were ready for that message. Whereas I could have just done a talking head video and said, you're a business owner. You need to change your business. Like, you need to create new products and services over time. No one's going to listen to that straight away. Whereas getting them hooked into it, like, oh, a game show, nice shirt, nice jacket. Yeah, let's listen to this. Oh, actually, I didn't know that Nokia started off making toilet paper. That is interesting. Okay, cool. This is fun. Okay, now I'm ready to listen to what the main point was, and I can get onboarded into this world that I need to know about. So focus on the very basic stuff or the introductory things that people need to know, and that's going to help them get into the content.
I love that. It's almost that priming, isn't it? You want to get people into the right state and get them ready to absorb. Because I used to write this thing, probably one of those pieces of content that should come back for me, which is this idea of like bad content at the right time can be transformational. Great content at the wrong time doesn't matter how great it is, right? You've got to have the timing's got to be right for those individuals. And of course, when you're creating content, you don't know what's going to resonate with people particularly. So therefore, that's why it's got to be consistent, and you've got to keep on pushing those messages out there. And I think this is why in marketing, we talk about saturation of the message, or communicating to the point where it's like saturated, where you feel like surely everyone has this, everyone's got a grasp of it, everyone understands it. That's probably the point that you double down and you like increase exactly the messaging that you go with around that topic. It's definitely the case internally within organizations. We do a lot of strategy work, and actually pretty much everything that I do now is probably baked in strategy of some kind. I think you're really doing strategy as well, business strategy. But what happens is a lot of people, strategy happens in boardrooms, but it never gets cascaded down. It very rarely, to the people that really need to know the direction of travel, the policies that you have, the guiding principles, all those kinds of things that are so important, very rarely do the people below a certain level kind of ever get that. And I think that's kind of a similar thing in the content world as well. Some people get it, whatever, people that you're very close to, those close group of friends that you've got, and collaborators that you work with. But actually you need to continue with that messaging so that it gets much deeper into people's souls. Don't quite know why I got that far, but I want to talk now. Transition. You just welcomed a transition for me into talking about the business model canvas. Like, I've been the same as you. I've had that dip of like, yeah, I get it. It looks really easy. I don't really understand the value. You did a lot of work with me on business model canvas for a business that I had previously, and a lot of exploration about other people's business models together. And I think a similar thing with Six Hat Thinking, right? Or Six Thinking Hats, because you see the graphic, and design thinking, I think, is the same thing. You see the graphic and you go, yeah, got it. I kind of do that, or I don't really need to think about it. But I think in some ways it's the genius of these ideas that they seem simple when you first come across them, these frameworks or ideas, and they're much more accessible. But people very quickly go through a dip of like not using it or not getting the best out of it. I don't know where the question is, but I guess, how do you get people to overcome that feeling that they have about the value of something like the business model canvas or value proposition canvas? How do you get people to really understand the strength and the magic, as you say, about these kinds of tools?
I think one way of doing that is to actually just show them like it used in the right way. And another way is to show them comparisons between this is the wrong way, this is what it looks like, and this is the good way, this is what it looks like. So with the business model canvas, because it's visual, generally people put way too many sticky notes and it's a mess. So show people that, and then show them, but this is what it could look like. And then you split it out, the business model canvas, into value proposition canvases. And you've got lots of different ones. You haven't got multiple business models on one canvas. You split them out. You've split out all the different customers. So you've got the users, the buyers, the saboteurs, all of it's mapped out. And it's all nice and clear. And you're using best practice where you're using as many visuals and pictures as you can. You're kind of keeping as fewer words as possible on each sticky note. And you're using arrows to show how things connect. And then when you're actually presenting it to someone, you're showing them one thing at a time. These are things that most people don't do when they use business model canvas. So showing people how it's currently done, and then how it can, like the benefits they can have from doing it this new way, or the actual right way. In this context, I would call it the right way, because it's how strategies are intended it to be used. They can see that straight away.
And it's a storytelling tool, right, as well. Like, that's what you're talking about there with showing one thing at a time. It's creating the narrative and the story it's the stories that draw people in. The visual aids that storytelling process, I guess. Is that fair?
Definitely. And I was speaking to Raoul De Vries. He's an innovation coach as well. And he was talking about how he uses Lego to help people create their own business model canvases. So he does it with Lego. And what's interesting is he makes the connections with long pieces of Lego. And so he then, like, we say that it's not just a checklist, right? That you just go through each box, you just put it's what's in there, and then you move on to the next thing. Because that's the problem with a lot of canvases that people create. They've just taken 10 random things, put them in boxes, put them on one piece of paper, and said that's a new canvas to do something else. But the thing is, they're all kind of separate and they don't really connect, and it's not organized. Whereas with the business model canvas, it's perfectly designed like a Swiss watch. You know, you've got all the connections there. And so with the Lego, when you've got two pieces connected there, another bit connected there, like what Roll would do is he'd say, okay, how can we change this? And then he'd get people to think about changing it, but then he'd get people to try and pull them out. And as you pull out the Lego, you can't just pull out one piece, because that means it's connected to this piece over there. So if you pull that out, that comes out as well. And so that was a great way of teaching people that you can actually use physically why those connections are so important and why they all work together, because they should all be working like that in a well-designed business model. So I think things like that can be helpful in this context of teaching people the business model canvas. But yeah, I think there's different ways of doing it for different concepts, though.
And tell us about the story that you have. When we used to work at Freeformers together, I remember the story that I remember you doing it, but I remember the story as well of basically talking through particularly new members of staff, but maybe actually people that have been staff for a long time, to ironically to get them to understand how the business really operates using the business model canvas, right? So tell us about that, because I think that's such a good use case for the business model canvas as well, which is overlooked, I think.
Definitely. Before I do that, I just want to talk about the value proposition canvas. Cool. And how we were doing it in a similar context. So when I first went to strategize a workshop, I think it was in 2016 for a couple of hours, and I've learned better about actually, it was the first time I'd heard of the value proposition canvas, even though I studied it at university. The value proposition I studied innovation at university, although I think that was pre-value proposition canvas anyway, to be fair. So the value proposition canvas, the customer profile, which is one element of it, just has three simple things. Well, four: who's your customer, what's their job to be done, why, what are the pains, and what are the gains, right? And I remember asking our very successful kind of CEO / kind of chairman, acting as chairman in that company, who'd had multiple exits, those four questions: who's our customer, what's their job to be done, what are their pains and their gains. And it was a difficult question. They were difficult questions for them, and they found it really difficult to answer, but they should have been quite simple and the fundamentals of business. And so therefore I went, wow, this is powerful, because if you can't answer this, how can you then create products and services that person's going to love, that solves their problems, if you don't actually even know what their problems are? So that's where the massive value came from there. And I was sold on it, which made it a lot easier for me to try to sell it to other people, to say, you should be using this because this is amazing. I say sell it, but it's free. Do you know what I mean? So the business model canvas, again, what I used to do is and I think this is a problem that we both understand, is that in organizations, it's hard to create autonomy or like people lower down in the organization that are really doing the right work in an effective way. The reason for this is because I think part of it is they're disengaged, and they're disengaged because they don't really understand where the company's going, or they're maybe not connected with it. Probably more that they don't understand where it's going, first of all. And so one great way, or one thing that you can do to get everybody literally singing off the same hymn sheet, is to create a business model canvas for your company and make sure everybody in the organization understands it, and they can even question it so that you can make it better. Because it's the easiest way to make sure that the strategy is explicit across the whole company, or at least how the business model works. And so getting everybody to know how it works is what you should be doing in organizations. And so, as you mentioned, every time someone new used to come in the company, I used to say, look, let's take an hour out, half an hour is enough. Let's map out the business model canvas together for the organization so that you really understand how we create, deliver, and capture value from customers, right? And I think that's something that all organizations should be doing, but they're not. And that's why you've got people that don't really understand what they're doing, and they're disengaged because they don't really know what the business model is and how it works.
I love that. I think it's such a good communication tool, such a good strategy for people to be, or tactic for people to be understanding what the strategy is and what the organization is trying to achieve. And it also makes me think, that should be a starting point for everyone, right? Really to try to understand exactly what the whole business does, or maybe your business unit or whatever it is, what you really do, multiple business model canvases might be needed at times, of course. But then I think the next step, and one of the amazing uses that I've seen with the business model canvas, is I think you just kind of described a little bit what happens if you take that Lego block out and seeing the connections, but also what leverage can you use now that you understand the as is approach or as is business model. You can start to ask what if questions, and it's a model, right? It's not the reality, but it's a model of the reality as it stands. What could the model of the near future reality look like as well? What happens if we injected something into these marketing channels? What would that mean for the customer relationships? What would that mean for our revenue growth? What happens if we take something out? So asking, a great model is something where you can ask what if questions. And I'm a fan of spreadsheets, and being able to do exactly that. But the business model canvas brings that to life in a really interesting way as well, which means that you can really start to ask those what if questions around product, and in conjunction with the value proposition canvas as well. Of course, you can start to model what the future could look like, and therefore where your growth potential could be as well, which is, I think, amazing opportunity. And again, it completely seems to be largely missing from people's understanding of what the business model is capable of. I think I see it often as a tool that people think is for startups just getting going. They might use a lean canvas or business model canvases. They're very similar but different in certain ways, which is really interesting. But I just don't seem to be used in that breadth of with that breadth of different kind of ways, I suppose, or methods, approaches. And that's partly why you exist, right? And that's why the job that you're looking to fill for people is to be able to take people on that journey, to understand the what is, and then hopefully start to be able to ask the questions, what if questions. And that's what the service that you kind of provide, right?
Absolutely. So I remember being at a strategizer masterclass that I paid for to be as an attendee, but also then being quite knowledgeable by that point in strategizer's methodology. And I was speaking to someone, an entrepreneur, a successful entrepreneur that happened to be sat next to me for 2 days. And he said, this was fantastic. This was a fantastic masterclass. But actually what I really wanted was not necessarily to be learning the tools so that I can apply them myself. What I wanted in this context was I would have just rather have paid you to help apply that to my business. And that's really how I help organizations. I'm trying to not educate them necessarily. I can do it. I can educate them in the tools as well. And that's a great way. That's a great thing to do. But often they don't have time. You could do a PhD in all this methodology. So what I'm trying to do is I'm saying, I'm the one that knows the tools. You know your business and what you want to do roughly. I'm going to help you apply these tools by asking you the right questions as a coach so that you can get the benefit from it, but without having to spend loads of time actually trying to learn all of the nuts and bolts of it, so that you've got the output that you need to be able to help you grow your business, but no more. And they find that really helpful because then they're not having to spend too much time messing about trying to get the output that they actually need. And that's how I help organizations.
And by hiring someone like you, they're gonna go through that process so much quicker, right? It's a done with you approach rather than DIY or done for you. You're going to go in, let's work on this together, get everything out of you, let's model it, let's map it, let's figure out what could come next, let's present it back in a way which is easily digestible, it's understandable, it's not like reams of a PowerPoint deck or anything silly like that. It's taking the complex and turning it into simple and actionable focus. And that's, I think, where the strength of a coach and the value of a coach or a consultant really comes in. We're doing similar things in that world, right? And I've kind of been torn about whether I call myself a consultant, a coach. Is it strategy? Is it innovation? Is it business? Is it product? It's really difficult to know kind of what's resonating, but ultimately it's that hybrid of coach plus consulting in a way that really, and I loved your opening thing about, and I've forgotten it now, but about, helping people to basically improve their businesses and grow their businesses, because that's ultimately what wakes people up at night. That's their ultimate job to be done, right? And if you can have a little, maybe short or maybe even a long, multi-stepped approach that helps people to improve their business, make more revenue, save some money here and there, capitalize on opportunities, mitigate risks of uncertainty and societal and technological changes that are happening around us, then bloody hell, that's a valuable proposition that you've got right there, right? And I love the fact that you're going after these small to medium-sized companies that feel like they're underserved as well. And if you think about that kind of real jobs to be done of an underserved market, it's probably a price which is affordable for those organizations as well. A price that makes you kind of fills your bucket of like, it's got to be high priced and less work so I can do all the other things that I do. But it's such value for an organization that it makes sense. If anyone's listening to this and hasn't got in touch with Nick about these things and is kind of going, oh, well, I have that problem in my organization. Nick, how can, like, you should be getting in touch with Nick. How can people get in touch with you, Nick? Let's do that one right now. And then I've got a final question as well.
I think message me on LinkedIn. That's a great way to start the conversation. You can go to nickhimo.com if you want to book in a strategy session straight away. And definitely keep watching my videos, keep sharing them as well, because I think it's great for people to know they need to understand it themselves, but then they can share it with their colleagues so that we can kind of like spread the message more widely, so that they don't feel like they're the only one that's trying to say, this is really important. How do we get everyone on the same page? Well, just sharing the videos can help do that. And then getting in touch with me, and then I can come in and help the organizations out.
Amazing. There you go. Well, Nick, look, this has been an amazing conversation. Thank you so much for your time today. Thank you for your time in the last pretty much 10 years, constantly with me, supporting literally every aspect of my life as well. I'm sad that we can't embrace in a manly hug like we used to and do big high fives. But I'm looking forward to the next time that we can do that. It's been a real joy. Is there anything that you want to leave people with? People know where to get in touch with you now. I'll make sure that there's links to all of that in the descriptions and all the content that goes out. Is there anything else that you want to leave people with? A final words to give people the motivation for their day as they continue to struggle on?
I've said it before, I'll say it again. Your job is today. The universe's job is tomorrow. Give the universe its jobs back.
Nick, absolute pleasure as always. Wish you a wonderful rest of the day. Send my love to the family, and I can't wait to do this again sometime.
Same to you, Spencer. Big love to your family as well. Big love to all the people watching this. Have a great day, everybody.